And now we're joined by Cary who's running for mayor. So go ahead with a 2-minute introduction.
Well, first, thank you for having me, and thanks for all the important work you do here at the District Downs. I'm a resident downtown, so I'm a member of the 43rd, but I have been a member of the 36th, and so it's good to be back here. I am running for mayor because I believe in Seattle's potential. We are a beautiful, diverse, vibrant city. We are blessed with incredible wealth and intelligence and creativity and the spirit of innovation. But we're becoming a city of haves and have-nots, of winners and losers. I believe we need to transcend the politics of fighting, of people going to stand up for their own self-interest, and we need instead a different kind of leadership that is about bringing people together towards a shared vision. We need to build a strategic plan to get there. We need a collaborative, participatory approach to get everybody involved in working towards that vision. Together, there's almost nothing we can't accomplish, especially with Seattle's shared progressive values and our commitment to the well-being of everyone. And I think current leadership is just not facing the challenges that we have in front of us with the right kind of courage and the right kind of leadership and the right kind of skills to really strike the problems at their root and bring everybody towards constructive, collaborative solutions. I believe cities are important, now more important than ever. They're the birthplace of democracy, and they are its future, given what's going on at the federal level. If we can define a North Star vision for Seattle, if we can figure out together what kind of place we want to be, if we can build shared commitment to get there, we can achieve that. I've worked 20 years behind the scenes as a civic leader, an activist, an urban planner, an engineer. And what I've learned is figuring out the solutions is not the hard part. The hard part is organizing the political will and the courage to really do the right thing. And that's the kind of leadership I represent. That's why I would like to be mayor of Seattle.
Great, thank you. So now we have our 4 prepared questions that we're asking all candidates for mayor, and they're actually right in front of you if you want to flip them over and read along as we read them aloud. We left off with John. Will you read number 1?
Sure. What is your strategy for implementing, leveraging, and perhaps improving the incentive zoning program to create diverse neighborhoods and ensure affordable housing?
I believe we're off to a good start with HALA. I think the mandatory housing affordability and up zones that plows money back into affordable housing is a good start. But I think it's nowhere near enough. I think our housing prices are escalating for other reasons beyond just our growth. What I've learned through my research is that in a hot market like ours, where the city's growing and there's natural demand, increasing demand for housing, the whole world sees that happening and they pile on. It's happened in every world-class city: Sydney, Australia, London, England, Vancouver, Manhattan. What happens is global capital from the rest of the world sees the growth and they start invading our housing market to use it for profiteering. And so that's part of driving up prices in our city, and we have to get ahead of that. We have to get the right data to understand the specifics of what's happening here and put in the right disincentives to stop the escalation. And those disincentives will include fees on empty, unoccupied housing that's just being used to park money. It would include taxes on property that's flipped too quickly. If somebody buys property, doesn't even use it, and flips it within a year, pay a tax on that. And taxes perhaps on corporate and non-resident ownership of property. So with those taxes and disincentives, we can build a revenue stream to fund affordable housing, because we have to strike this problem at both ends: at the top to stop the escalation, at the bottom to bring up affordable housing, and also in the middle. I think there's a lot more we could do to add density with grace in neighborhoods. It's really important that our neighborhoods have a mix of people of all income levels, all stages in life, people just starting out, working families, retirees, and empty nesters. It's important that we create healthy neighborhoods with a mix of people from different socioeconomic status, and so that means a mix of housing types, affordable to different income levels.
Great. Nicole, number 2.
In your view, what is the city's role in ensuring equal educational and achievement opportunity in Seattle public schools?
Wow, this is a state and a city problem. I think we need to keep using all the momentum of our voice in Seattle to keep pushing the legislature to deal with Cary and get enough revenue into the state system so that they are operating with a full revenue stream to fund their budget as required by law. And then also look at some of the more progressive taxes being proposed for our city, some of the ones I mentioned around housing, but also other progressive taxes that might work, like capital gains tax, changing the inheritance tax, and really look at how can we build new revenue streams to invest in education. Because as most people who've looked at this problem understand, that giving kids an equal start is the most important thing for them thriving throughout their lives. And we don't have an equal start in Seattle right now. We do not fund schools in the lower income neighborhoods adequately, and we see it. We see it in the outcomes, and it's just simply not what we stand for. It's not fair. It's not who we want to be as a city. And I think in this time, when everybody's understanding how the trickle-down economic theory doesn't work and everybody sees what Donald Trump is aiming for, we have this opportunity to really tackle this problem assertively and really build enough revenue stream to invest in education for everybody, so everybody gets a fair start and every kid can pursue their dreams.
Jason, number 3.
What are your specific recommendations for completion and follow-up steps of the Seattle Police Department consent decree and ongoing steps to improve department relations with Seattle residents?
I think the progress that the police have made to stop use of force is a really good first step. And I think the next steps will require a lot more trust building and collaboration between communities and the police. We have not done a good job bringing our police department into the 21st century when it comes to racial equity and it comes to where racism happens in 21st century America. It's not overt attacks and interpersonal malice as much as it used to be. It is in systems, it is in a sense of inferiority that people are trained to look at people of color with, that white people are trained to look at people of color with. We have to do a lot more racial equity training within the police department and really get people to understand implicit bias in themselves, the fear they feel of people of color, and work with the police department with the most effective trainers there are around racial equity. And then that said, we have to keep going with investments in alternatives to incarceration, especially for youth, and really understanding how you can give people a different path when they've made a mistake, even a serious mistake, helping them find a different path to get back into society. And work really hard, especially against incarceration of youth, because once youth is jailed and put in prison and on their record, it's very hard to get back into society in a healthy way. So alternatives to incarceration. And then a lot more community policing. I think if we can build up the revenue stream for the social services, the mental health services that a lot of people who are committing crimes actually need, take the police out of that business and we can direct police back into community policing and establishing healthy relationships with community in neighborhoods. Beat cops, being available, being present, and helping kids feel safe around police. I think all those things are possible if we can get to the root cause of the problem.
Number 4.
What is your strategy for dealing with homelessness in Seattle?
Again, I think we see the symptoms. Homelessness is a symptom to a terrible economic system and a terrible housing affordability crisis. So people are one paycheck away from facing eviction because housing is so unaffordable and because we don't have an economy that builds prosperity broadly, that recirculates wealth back into communities, that gives people the opportunity to climb the ladder to better jobs. And so because we have those big, serious structural problems, we have this growing crisis with homelessness. So I think understanding the problem, the root causes of the problem, is the first step. And there are 3 categories of solutions I think we should deal with. The first is when we brought in experts from other cities, like in San Antonio, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, to talk about their efforts at homelessness. We learned that they have much better coordination between social service providers, city agencies, and the nonprofits that are involved in helping us get past homelessness. So they have shared data, shared tracking, and a shared commitment to working together to achieve problems. So it means things like they have a single point of entry for people who are new to homelessness. they know one place to go and they know all their options and they have a coordinated system that can help them get to services and get to shelter for the night. So that's one, better coordination and data sharing. Two, I think really the housing first model is the right model where people don't get into secure housing with a roof over their heads. They really can't tackle any of the other problems they're facing in their lives. So housing first, doing whatever we can to get them into secure housing. And I think the third thing then becomes, we don't have enough space in shelters. We don't have enough affordable housing. So what do we offer those folks? And I think the more we can build tiny house villages and get churches and communities to offer something in their neighborhoods where homeless people can come in and be secure and safe with a network of support around them, that is essential to part of the housing first solution.
Great. So now we'll open up to follow-up questions. These are 1-minute answers. We'll start with Sarah and then Ben.
Can you talk a little bit about your management and political experience and how that would influence your leadership style as well here?
I have worked as an activist, as a policy advisor, as a strategist on several different areas. So reclaiming, I established the vision for the downtown waterfront and reclaiming that land from the State Highway Department and building a 22-acre space for people at the heart of our city. So I worked in that, in housing affordability, and in building an economic vision and platform for the state so that we can build prosperity for everybody. And in democracy reform, I helped launch the Democracy Hub, which is a new effort to reform democracy in the state. So I've worked on several different issue areas, and what I've learned is that we really need a spirit of collaboration and a commitment from leadership in city government to build the political will to get to these solutions. And so while I haven't had elected office before, I've worked in the public sector, I've worked in the private sector as running a small business, and I worked as an engineer in big corporate companies. And so I have a breadth of experience around what happens in the private sector and the public sector and the nonprofit sector that would inform how I work as a collaborator.
Ben?
So one of the social issues that's not on this list is that of environmental sustainability and climate, which is one of the biggest challenges that we face as humanity. So what is your environmental sustainability platform?
When Nichols first established the Mayor's Climate Initiative and got 1,000 cities to sign on with that and say, the federal government is not doing enough, we will do more in our cities. I think that was a great model, and I would like to kind of reinvigorate that commitment and rebuild a network of leadership across cities to tackle those problems in the domains where you can actually get things done, which is within cities. So in our state, most of the emissions come from transportation. So I think a really strong platform of transit and providing people alternatives to driving so that people only drive when they have to, because transit is so good, bike facilities are so good, walking facilities are so good that we don't actually need to use our cars as much as we do now. So investments in transit and alternative transportation is a huge goal. And then working with the built environment, that we have so much we could do to make buildings, homes and commercial buildings more energy efficient, and that is a great green jobs generator too, so it's a win-win.
Ben and then David, I think.
So how are you funding your campaign, and will you accept money from big donors, big corporations, big developers?
So I helped with Honest Election Seattle. I believe in reducing the spending limits. I believe in the democracy vouchers. I wish we could use them in the mayor's race. I believe getting money out of politics is essential for recreating the power of the people. And so I'm funding my campaign by going after all sizes of donations. I'm doing a strong grassroots campaign as well as going after the $500 donors, which used to be, remember the limit used to be $1,400. Now it's down to $500. So I'm going to go after $500 donors too, because I believe that it's the dark money, the unaccountable money that happens in PACs and independent expenditures. That's the money we have to worry about. But people actually putting their name forward and saying, I support this candidate, I believe in what they have to offer, and I can donate $10, $50, $250, $500. I feel like that's healthy, and those are the voices that deserve to be heard. So I'm definitely fundraising hard, and I also can contribute private money from my own wealth to the campaign if the fundraising isn't enough to get me across the finish line.
Great. David, and then I have one.
So, your introductory remarks and subsequent answers to our questions, I think you're really clear on what your vision for Seattle is. And I think perhaps, well, for me anyway, still a little less clear is why you're the best leader to implement that vision. And just wondering if you could give me some input on in regards to that question.
So I am proud to be one of the 11,000 women who decided, since Donald Trump was elected, to run for office, because it's time for a different kind of leadership. And my personal style is listen, collaborate towards building a shared vision, and then work with everybody to say, hey, look what we could do if we work together. I don't really have a big ego. I don't really stand out in front and say, hey, look what I did. I'm part of a team. I'm part of a collaborative effort. In everything I've done, there's always been a bunch of people pulling in the same direction, because that's how I believe we can achieve the biggest, hardest goals. And my leadership style is very much informed by being an engineer and a planner. I really look systemically at what's causing the problem, what are all the factors at play, how do we strike the problem at its root, and then how do we build a vision for what we could be, because I think a constructive vision and an inclusive way of operating is the best way to tackle big problems.
Great. So I have one. So the City Council is moving forward on an income tax. I was wondering what your thoughts were on that and other progressive revenue sources for the city.
I believe the effort is good as an aspirational goal. I'm concerned that an income tax alone might not be enough, because we don't know if it's going to survive the legal challenge, and I think we all know that we don't want any more flat taxes. We want any new taxes to be steeply progressive. So I'm worried about taxing wages when we should be really focused on taxing wealth and unearned income. So yes, let's keep going with the income tax effort and see if we can prevail and see if we can use it to build momentum. But at the same time, we need some more immediate, short-term solutions, like the taxes I talked about on unearned property speculation, that wealth, and keep working with the state on a capital gains tax, on maybe revising our inheritance tax, because we need really the wealthy to pay their fair share, and we are deeply regressive. We have to have much deeper progressive policies for any new tax policies.
Thank you. Time for one or two more, Brittany?
On your website, you mentioned that you want to discourage displacement of minority-owned businesses. I was wondering if you could offer any specific strategies you have for that.
I think working directly in communities that are at risk of displacement, communities of color, communities that were historically redlined in the past, have a real risk of displacement and being pushed out, because if their property values are less, we're growing so fast, people with more wealth and power want to come in and say, I'd like to live in your neighborhood, and push people out. So I think working directly with the individual business owners in the neighborhood of how can we grow in a way that benefits you. So it's very fine-grained and micro. There's not a big blanket solution that applies everywhere, but it's about how do we ensure growth. Any new growth has affordable rents to existing neighborhood businesses, that we're finding the right loan systems to get loans for businesses to expand and grow in place. We are making community agreements in new development where people from the community have rights of first refusal, and maybe facilities for community space or for art space or for local businesses in any new development. So it's about negotiating within the community and the new developers coming in exactly what we can do to help communities thrive in place.
Time for one last one.
So you're running against an incumbent mayor, and I was wondering if you would please identify a specific failing of that mayor and how you would have succeeded where he failed.
I don't think he has analysis around why the economy isn't working and why housing affordability is out of control. I don't think he even understands the problem. He's done so many other good things. He's a great progressive leader on so many issues. Gay rights, the Hollow work was important. $15 minimum wage was a really great achievement for our city. So he does have a lot of accomplishments, But the problems we're facing now are really complex and they're really difficult, and I don't think he gets it. I don't think he understands why housing is unaffordable, and so many developers are telling him, oh, don't worry about it. If you let us keep building, the prices will magically drop. I don't think there's any evidence that that's true, but I don't think he understands what is happening and what to do about it. And with economic prosperity, I think there's so much we could be doing with small and local business and access to entrepreneurship and industrial policy to keep good jobs in our city, and the jobs that employ people at family wages and that recirculate wealth back into the economy. We need a really strong economic development and industrial policy, and we just simply don't have it because I don't think he understands how important that is.
All right, so we are out of time. If you want to take 30 seconds for a closing statement.
I am really excited about this potential opportunity to lead Seattle, and I would really like your endorsement. I think it's a time for new leadership. I think having a strong vision and a strong collaborative style and an inclusive platform of how do we make sure Seattle's welcoming for everyone, that all of us who live here have a right to shape our future. I think it's the right time for that kind of leadership, and I really hope you can endorse me because you believe that too.
Great, thank you very much.